It's still the second part of the dark tram ride here at Salt Mine in Hutchinson.
You might notice
Strataca.
that we're on a little roadway right at the moment. We'll get off of it very shortly. But this roadway and the actual floor that you were walking on in the museum is a product we call saltcrete. They had cement mixer underground. They had water from their plumbing, so they brought down dry bags of Portland cement, and instead of bringing tons of sand and gravel down for the aggregate in that mixture, they just shoveled salt into the mixer, and that's why we call it saltcrete. It's a very strong, stable floor, but if you happen to spill water on it, the salt still wants to dissolve, so that's why we try to keep it as dry as possible. The very brief story, I'm going to pause for a moment. I think we've got some headlights coming toward us. But the very brief story of how salt became such a major player in the economy in and around Hutchinson, which is widely known as the Salt City. Hutchinson was established in 1872, and their southernmost boundary was the Arkansas River. A man came to this area from Terre Haute, Indiana. His name was Ben Blanchard, and he staked a claim and started the town of South Hutchinson. It is a smaller, separate municipality on the other side of the river from Hutchinson. And in 1887, Mr. Blanchard was attempting to drill for oil on one of his properties, and before he struck oil, he hit this bed of rock salt. And that single discovery started what was then known as the salt boom of 1888. Within a year's time, there was no less than 10 companies in and around Hutchinson attempting to produce salt. All, of course, using what we refer to as the solution mining method, rather than bringing men and machinery underground and mining the salt as a rock. From the top side, they would bore wells into this deposit, flush those wells with water, and leave that water underground for quite a long time, up to 2 years sometimes, and it would dissolve the salt. That salty water, which is referred to as brine, was then pumped topside. They would force evaporate the water off of that, and they're left with a pretty pure form of salt. And that's how your table salt is still produced today, the solution mining and evaporation process. Mr. Carey was the first to come underground with men and machinery in this facility and mine the salt as a rock in this area. But Mr. Blanchard, the man who discovered the salt, didn't have much desire to be a salt miner. He actually sold his holdings in South Hutchinson and went on to be the founding father of 2 more towns within the United States. And by the end of his working career, he had returned to his original vocation of banking and was employed as an investment banker working for Queen Victoria out of Buckingham Palace in London. I want to stop for a moment. I want to point out something to you folks. You've seen these, what we call crib blocks. You saw them over by the railroad train. We went through a pair of them when we saw the red salt deposit. Those are actually old railroad ties that have been recycled, and they're called cribs when they're stacked in such a fashion. Remember when I talked about the floor heaving next to the pillars due to the pressure? Well, if the floor was going to heave in an area where it was going to create a problem, the miners and museum personnel would take their old railroad ties, pick them up out of a rail bed that was no longer being used. They'd stack them in such a fashion on top of the heave and then wedge against the roof of the mine, and they could stop the heave from coming up. It might spread out wider, but it wouldn't come up any higher. So whenever you see those crib blocks, the attempt was not to hold the roof up, but to keep the floor down. Now over behind these yellow brattice curtains that are now on your right-hand side is a room between four of the pillars that we call our event center. And we actually have a concrete floor in there, so we don't have to worry about spillage. But we have many different events. We have corporate meetings, we have Boy Scout, Girl Scout overnights. We've even had a wedding down here before. But this signboard, which has been partially erased, is advertising our next interactive dinner theater. It's going to be in August. We just had one on April 6th, which is almost be 2 weeks from tomorrow night. Or 2 weeks ago tomorrow night. But it's always part of our Murder in the Mine mystery series. And we have a very comical couple that comes here from Chicago. And during the dinner, they'll put on a skit. And by interactive, you as one of the dinner guests may be asked to read a part of that script, and you will therefore become a suspect in that murder mystery. But during the play, the actors put on a very comical skit, and they'll drop little hints and little clues as to who or why that crime was committed, but they won't divulge who the perpetrator was. And if you pay really close attention and use your thinking hat, you might be able to figure out who done it. And if you guess correctly, your name goes into the hat, and winner gets drawn from that group, and then that person gets a very nice prize. So it's a fun evening. We do it in April, in August, and then again right before Christmas. It's always a different theme and always a lot of fun. Folks, we made it back to where we started. If you want to do some shopping, you've got just a few minutes left to do that. Please exit carefully on your left, and if you're in a hurry to go topside, the hoist is directly behind you now down that very long corridor. So, thank you.